Greetings, everyone, and welcome to We Are ACEDS, streaming live on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. My name is Mike Quartararo. I am the president of ACEDS. Today, we will be joined momentarily by the head of product at Hanzo. Hanzo, of course, is a technology company that developed a cloud-based platform for legal compliance and governance teams that captures dynamic and web-based data sources for use in your litigations, in your investigations, regulatory inquiries, for compliance needs. Of course, you can learn more about Hanzo at hanzo.co, C-O. And Hanzo, of course, has been an affiliate partner of ours for many years, and we're so proud to collaborate with them on a number of different projects relating to collaboration data and other things. And we're always happy to showcase our partners and promote what they've got going on for the benefit of our members and the e-discovery community at large. So let's get into it. Dave, welcome to We Are ACEDS. Thanks so much for making the time. And let's get into it a little bit. How
Great.
you doing?
I'm doing well, Mike. Thanks a lot. I keep waiting to see you dance in the intro. I keep missing that, but
My dancing is the one thing I don't do well. Although I have a musical background, so I get like rhythm and beat and timing and stuff, but dancing, it just, I don't know. I feel like I'm not built for it, but conversation for another day.
Excellent.
Let's start, Dave. For those who don't know, tell us a little about you. Tell us about Hanzo and your role at Hanzo.
Sure.
So that everybody can have some context.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, my name's Dave Ruel, obviously, VP of product here at Hanzo. I've been here about a little over 2.5 years now. Came from a kind of a laundry list of e-discovery providers, LSPs, software developers, etc. Joined Hanzo, as I said, about 2.5 years ago. I've moved up through product management to VP of product. Hanzo's obviously, we are a fairly old company, actually a very mature company in the compliance space and web archiving space. That's where we began as a company. And then back in, I believe, 2019 or so, we came out with Hanzo Hold. And that was really kind of the first dedicated platform in e-discovery to grab Slack data. As at that time, pre-COVID, the collaboration platform was kind of, I would say, in its infancy. It was really just being tried out and used, but it became obviously very necessary source for a lot of companies that were transitioning away from kind of traditional email into that type of platform. So that's where the product started. And of course, we've grown the product, over the last.
It really kind of
year.
exploded, if you think about it, right? It
Oh,
exploded during COVID.
yeah, I think we talked last time, Mike. We were tracking statistics in the system, and we were watching what happened during COVID. Were the things that we were hearing actually true? And the fact is, they were. We were watching how many messages were being tracked through the systems, and we were seeing a doubling from 20 to 21 and into 22. And so it's interesting, and it does. What we see is actually tracking along with what other people were seeing too, with people using the platforms now. It'll be interesting in 23. We ran stats early in the year, but it'll be interesting as we track through this year to see how hybrid now is going to maybe change, how much collaboration is going on in those platforms, both in Teams and Slack. But I assume it's going to stay rather high no matter what, just because people are used to that way in which to collaborate. So I think that's going to continue. It's just maybe not double this year, right?
Yeah, I don't have a sense that we're going backwards anyway.
Yeah. Definitely a lot more people in the office and kind of doing the face-to-face thing now.
Honestly, email's now annoying, frankly. It's so much easier to just.
I can't disagree with that, to be honest.
All right, let's start in the most logical place. We had Legal Week recently.
Yeah.
Formerly Legal Tech. It's not quite a week, so I don't know why we call it Legal Week, but whatever works.
Mm-hmm.
How was your Legal Week?
Yeah, our Legal Week was fantastic this year. I think all of us kind of saw kind of a more energy this year than we were seeing. People coming out of COVID. I mean, it's we keep talking about COVID, of course, but people came out of that. I think I'd heard that attendance was another 1,500 to 2,000 over last year. Physically, Hanzo was in a different place this year, which was really great for us. I think the traffic was better, but just a lot more techie questions. A lot more platform questions. What are you doing in this space? How are you helping? Right. So I thought it was really good. I thought it was, it's just like I said, the energy alone was a lot better, and I think people were asking a lot more, really deep technology questions, which I always welcome at shows like that where you're not talking about the same old thing that you were talking about. It's like, what are you doing with AI? What are you doing with ChatGPT? Where's your stance on all that stuff? Those are great questions to have,
I
actually.
know, and I have to tell you, I was every panel that I looked at, and I didn't stay for a lot of all of them, but like almost every panel discussion, somehow they work Chat GPT or AI into the conversation. I was like,
Yep.
wow,
It was
not,
everywhere. It was everywhere from the very second that people were walking into on the show floor. I
yeah,
mean, people were walking up and it's like, "Oh, what do you do? Oh, do you do ChatGPT? Are you?" It's like it was really part of almost every single conversation. And the demos that we were doing, the discussion points were always coming around to where does where does that fit in? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? What are your thoughts about this? Because people are still exploring,
sure,
and it's like, as a technology company, where are you guys at with this? What do you guys think about this? So it
exactly.
it really came out of left field. I mean, it's amazing how quickly that has taken over a lot of the conversations.
It's a logical question to ask, and we're going to get to
Absolutely.
it. We're going to get to it in a minute, but
Yep.
and I'll just share that my colleagues and friends in marketing are going to hate me for this, but the hype is sometimes a little bit too much for me.
Hmm.
I think it's an important conversation to have, so long as we're having a responsible conversation about it, right?
Yeah. And Mike, I think my takeaway was that felt like Legal Week felt like the first place where there was people starting to talk about guardrails
Yeah.
a little bit, right? Because up until that point, where's legal play in all this? And people are like, oh, it's going to take over I go back, we're old enough to remember tar and, people talking about, oh, the reviewers are gone. No one's going to be doing that type of thing anymore. And it was a huge hype cycle, if you remember, around tar um, and Cal, of course.
Hmm.
But it's the same thing. It's like it goes over that, like everybody's into that wave and everyone's talking about it. But then where does it land at the end of the day? Logically, there has to be guardrails, there have to be controls put in place, and legal is the place where that starts to happen,
Right.
right? Because people can try to apply to schools and write letters and writing, full on applications and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about law, where is it going to fall in? Where are the guardrails of where it can safely be used and not used? And I think this is the first time it felt like people are starting to they're asking really good questions about, where are those guardrails? Where should we not be doing this?
Hmm.
Because maybe we can't trust the technology, or there's privacy issues around the content that's put up.
Right, and I think
Yeah.
to your point that when you're talking about AI and legal, right? These are just my experience been the most risk averse people in the world. So they're going to look at it closely and say, okay, so you put that data in there. Where'd that data go? Like
Yeah,
it
exactly.
raises questions, right? And lawyers are some of the best at sort of fleshing out what those issues are
Hmm.
and identifying the risks and helping people to mitigate. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
it's gonna
rightfully so. I mean, they have to stand up and defend
they should
all the
be.
processes and everything else. That's where this has
Exactly.
got to be,
And
right?
and frankly, all it's going to take is like one mistake with one client's data, and boom, we're going to have a regulatory scheme like you wouldn't believe. So
Exactly.
anyway, we're not here to
Yes.
talk about that. Let's talk about Hanzo. What's going on? What's
Sure.
new? I understand you've got a couple initiatives going on. Tell us about them.
Yeah. So I'll back up a little bit before legal week, because we had a lot of kind of releases, a lot of press around legal week, because we released a lot of product around that time frame. Back up a little bit to Christmas. The first kind of exciting product I think that we launched was called Command Center. And Command Center it's a dedicated Slack application that allows people to kind of interact with Illuminate, which is Hanzo. It used to be Hanzo Hold, now it's Hanzo Illuminate. That platform allows them, that application allows them actually create matters inside Illuminate, place custodians on hold, and trigger collections and create reports, all
Mm,
from within a Slack application. So what we were seeing there is, you've got transactional services that are going on, and some people are in every day, some people are in, once a month, as an example. So the idea of context switching, having to remember to go back to which application is that, where's the bookmark, how do I log in, how do I create a matter, going through that process and
mm,
those stages of transitioning from one application to another. Um, we worked on this project last year where we said, let's create this Slack application for our clients that allow them to do kind of the easy stuff, the low hanging fruit stuff, let them just stay inside of Slack, and we walk them through that workflow. And so we're really the first company that has kind of taken on that, and it's it's talking to Illuminate at the end of the day, but it's allowing them to put Google Workspace custodians and Slack custodians on hold, all from within Slack,
Mhm.
triggering the collection, looking at your matters and things like that. So that was kind of the first, it's kind of our first outside application that we've created. And it's been very cool. People really like the idea that we're thinking outside the box, and we're allowing clients to kind of transition or stay in the application that you would be using every day anyway. You're in Slack. Why can't I do things inside Slack or just stay in Slack? So Command Center was kind of the first thing that leading into Legal Week. And then at Legal Week there were two new products that we were talking about. We were talking about something called Spotlight Plus, and this is an extension of Spotlight that we had last year. But there's two components to that. Um, First of all, it is a Watson component. We'll talk about this, I think, in a couple minutes, Mike.
Yeah.
But we have a partnership with IBM, the embedded AI and the Watson AI team. So we have Watson embedded into the product to do PII detection, and at the same time categorize information that's coming through on channels. And so it is that was part of Spotlight Plus. So it's an extension of kind of searching. It's giving you more information about about a lot of channel content at the end of the day, because our clients are routinely collecting 5 million, 10 million messages.
Yeah.
And really, it's like, how do you sort through and sift through all that information as efficiently as possible to get down to the heart of the matter at the end of
I'll
the day?
tell
And
you,
so,
everybody I know is struggling with this. Like the
absolutely, and we hear it over and over again. And we have gotten statistics from some of our clients saying, yeah, we average 5 million messages per Slack collection, and less than 1% of that is really relevant. It's kind of like the old email days, right? I've collected a million emails. Less than 1% of that is irrelevant. So you look at the same type of thing. So Spotlight Plus is really a way in which for our clients to kind of make sense of all of that information, all that kind of, we're calling it the tsunami of data that's being thrown at them, and messages and all that stuff. So that was Spotlight Plus, and then we do have some new connectors as well that we launched. So
I'm
always
excited. I'm
important.
excited about one of them.
Okay.
And
So
anybody who
all
knows
the
my background,
all the connectors we have there. We've heard for quite a while about that Jira and Confluence are becoming more and more important, especially with tech companies where a lot of the bulk of their work, their tech work, is being done in Jira and Asana,
mm,
creating tickets and all their documentation. So we added those two as data sources. Then we also partnered with Asana, and Asana is one where obviously, yeah, they're moving more toward big enterprises and being able to launch into enterprises. And obviously having an e-discovery solution is really important for them, because an enterprise is concerned about how do you retain data, how do you export data, for things like e-discovery or investigations. So we've partnered with them, and we have a connector to Asana. And then the other launch for us was Microsoft Teams. So that's a big one as well, of course, because Microsoft Team, exploded during COVID and just continues to grow, and with all their AI development as
more
well,
so than Slack, frankly.
way more than Slack.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the hockey stick, if you look at the growth, it's very steep on Teams versus Slack, and so
And it's
that's
just
a
a function of people moving to the cloud and
yeah,
M365. That it's
yeah,
just
absolutely,
it's there.
yeah, and Teams, I think, honestly, Mike, I think there was a real dedication during COVID by Microsoft on Teams, to extend Teams. I think they saw it for what it was, which is, look, nobody's working in an office right now. We have to have a better collaborative tool. And so I really do believe they put a lot into it and continue to put a lot into it. And so when we look at the active daily user kind of thing, you see that it's over 280 million people a day using that type of thing. So yeah, it's kind of off the chart. So for us, that is just you look at your data source, you go, yeah, that's absolutely one that you have to have.
Yeah.
And so we had Teams as well that we were launching at Legal Week and talking about.
280 million. If you think about it, for anyone who's doing the math, there's only about 330 million people in the country.
Sure. Well, that's global, so yeah. Every man, woman, and child is now using Teams in the United States. Yeah.
Incredible.
So no, but I mean, it is. There's a lot of content being put into Teams, obviously, right now, and
And I really like the
so
Asana thing. Why? Because anybody who knows me knows I like project management, I like
yes,
workflows, I like productivity tracking, all those kinds of things. So
yeah.
love that you're doing that. Let me ask you this: what's driving these innovations? What is it? Is the customer driving this, or because I like to say, solve real problems with real solutions.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're hitting on the things that people need, and I'm wondering what.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this is 100% customer driven at the end of the day.
Good.
It's not just because I want to go pick, whatever data source you want. You through the process of sales, and you hear, you go to shows, you talk to clients, you talk to the user base that you have, and they're constantly asking for this data source or that data source. This is really hard, Mike, because you could understand. I think the stat is that an enterprise has over 200 SaaS applications running.
Hmm.
So, holy cow, what do you pick at the end of the day? You've got, you hope you pick the winners, if you're going to collect data from them. And then you have the whole, like, is it relevant? Is that content relevant to legal matters or
Yeah.
internal investigations? But you're going to obviously go with the sources where people are constantly saying, "Hey, do you guys have this source? Can you do Asana as an example? Can you go do Jira Confluence?" Um, those are important things, and we're just continue throughout the year. We're going to continue to drive toward more sources that make sense for clients, where they're coming and saying, yeah, this is the entire heart of our entire corporate structure or whatever, to be able to go do that and put them in play. I mean, that's something we constantly look at those anyway, and you're balancing when's the right time to do it, and which one do you pick. Those are tough because there's a lot out there.
Customer driven innovation. I love it.
Yes,
All right, let's move on.
absolutely.
We alluded to this. Let's talk a little bit about AI first. My
Yeah,
question is, how does AI factor into the Hanzo roadmap? And then let's talk a little bit about your thoughts on the safety of AI, the ethics of AI, that whole debate that's going on right now, where I mean, there's a lot of sort of experimentation going on right now.
absolutely.
But
Yeah.
how is Hanzo leveraging AI?
Sure. Yeah. So, great question. We have a partnership with, I think I mentioned this earlier. We have a partnership with IBM,
Hmm.
and Watson AI. Um, they launched what's called embedded AI, Mike.
Hmm.
And embedded AI is literally AI technology, machine learning models that fall within the tenant and the, your tenant, your structure that you're rolling out to a client. So there are no external calls being made out to APIs, open AIs, any of that type of thing. So there is a huge benefit for Hanzo clients at the end of the day, because security of that content is like number one. For us, we don't want information being spilled out. We don't want open AI calls made, training models on the public models and things like that. So we partner with that team. We are using the embedded AI strategy with them. We are using kind of, I mentioned this to you, the crawl, walk, run strategy here. It's like, let's not throw everything. First of all, it's got to be useful for our client. I'm not going to just throw it in there just because it looks pretty and all that. I mean, it has to be it has to be useful for our client. Has to have real use, and real work, solve real problems for them at the end of the day. Otherwise, you're just, you're throwing all the work at it, and no one's using
Right, right, right.
the feature. So we're using the Watson AI, embedded AI, from the Watson team. There are two things that we are doing right now. Number one is PI detection. So any information that's ingested into the content into Hanzo Illuminate, it's coming through that ingestion pipeline. It's being enhanced. So we're looking for that type of content and then tagging it up so users can go find that. That's really for people who want to look for that type of information. Maybe you have internal IT teams or internal investigations that may want to find that kind of content. So that's part one. Part two, though, I think is even better for our users, and that is us trying to make sense of all the content that is coming through. We had mentioned how much data is actually being generated now with these collections. And so what we're using right now as well is Watson's categorization model. And
Mm.
so what happens is that data is streaming in. You may have 50,000 messages in a channel. How do I know what that's about? I have no clue what the content's about.
Right.
You have to start reading through that stuff, right? Sure, you could keyword your way through some of the stuff, but at the end of the day, that doesn't really tell you, like, sum it up really quickly. So what we're doing now is we're categorizing content coming through channels, and we're allowing users to go into, we have a kind of a heat map structure. It basically could say, Mike and Dave, pick them as custodians. Let's look at direct messages. What were they talking about? And we instantly update this categorization model, and you can say, oh, Mike and Dave were talking about wine and cheese making and movies, right? Their favorite movies. Sometimes not knowing what you don't want is just as important as knowing what you want. So you can
Absolutely.
really quickly say, I don't care about that. But let's say Mike and Dave are actually talking about employment contracts. We're talking about financing. Maybe we're talking about resume building. Um, Unless you read through the structure, you don't know that. So this categorization model is one of those ways in which we're trying to really categorize all that content coming through, all flowing through all these channels, to give people and our users the idea that, yes, I can see this category. I can drill down to a subcategory. I can then look at the content in that category, zoom out, zoom into another category. So it's this model that allows us to try to make sense of so much content at the same time. So that's the other component of AI that we're using from Watson.
I want to clarify something, Dave, because
Sure.
for our listeners, it may not be entirely clear. Is this embedded AI something that Hanzo is housing and making available to its clients, or is it something that when you deploy the Hanzo application within your organization, it's the organization's data, the client's data that is going in and forming the basis for this model?
It's 100% the client data,
Okay.
Mike. So this is, it's a SaaS application, obviously, but it's not trained on anything but your information. You're not making API calls into other models and other places to enhance the data. It's all from within that embedded AI that's there for
So,
that tenant, for
so
that client.
So very
So
useful at understanding your internal data, whatever it
yes,
may
and
be.
super secure, which is really, this is the lever that we're really using right now, and telling our clients, like, you know, you need to think twice when you're asking a chat GPT, for example, questions, answers, and putting anything up in those areas. Yes, there is security built into those, but there are obviously a lot of questions
Yeah.
right now, and we've seen a couple data breaches going on with OpenAI. So it's, you just have to be very careful and cautious with that, and so that's where we right now, I think, with this Watson strategy, very, very solid at the end of the day. They have years of experience in this area, and we think we have a really excellent partner. And I think that the security posture is also very, very good for where we are right now,
Hey, it's IBM.
because
Does it
it's
get
IBM. Absolutely,
better?
absolutely.
It's
Yep.
like nobody ever got fired for using FedEx.
And as we continue on, Mike, so as I said, that's like kind of the crawl, walk, run. So the great thing about IBM is they have a lot of other models that can be used. Of course, our team is looking at what do we use out of the model sets that they have that are most useful for our clients,
Cool.
to help them, at the end of the day, to help them get through their workload, to help them get to the answer as fast as possible. Which is what we're really trying to do. And you just don't pick a model just for the heck of it and say, oh, I can do this cool thing because it looks really good. No, it's got to really work. It's got to do something for somebody.
Perfect
So
segue
yeah,
into the guardrail conversation, right?
yes,
So
yes,
there's all kinds of conversation about the ethics of AI, the safety, the security. Um, what is Hanzo's take? What is your take, for that matter, on the guardrails that are needed in the space?
yeah. I mean, look, it's proceed with caution. I mean, that's really, I think that's what everyone is kind of doing now. It's that hype that you had mentioned, Mike. It's like at the beginning, whoa, everyone's doing this. Everyone wants to embed this thing in and do all this stuff. And just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so it's one of those things where I just say proceed with caution. We are, of course, doing the same thing, right? We're just not opening this up and letting, like, sure, could we put chat GPT in play? Sure, you could. But then you have to ask yourself, what are we doing? How much is it going to cost a client? What is the security of that at the end of the day? Because look, legal has the most sensitive information that a company actually owns. At the end of the day, that stuff is really ending up in a place for the information governance space, GRC, legal. That information is getting collected up and put in, and the last thing you want to do is kind of train a public model on a sexual harassment case for a CEO, and then someone has a leak and they're finding out what's going on with that. I read an interesting thing a couple weeks back, Mike. Is people are searching for potential patents. There were people who were just basically raising their hands saying there's a chance that when you ask models like that, in the Q&A sessions that are in there, that there's a chance that you could invalidate a patent. And I'm not a patent lawyer, so I don't know, but it's a very interesting question to be asked, is saying that you're using that as a research source to try to find information. But now, are we training something? Are we actually putting Q&As up that could potentially be looked at, could be potentially searched for? So it's all these little things, and I think as you mentioned, guardrails. That's where I think the guardrails are beginning to be put in place. People are asking, I think, the best questions, about how secure is the data, how secure is the question and answer, the NLP, all the stuff that I'm trying to do here. How secure is that at the end of the day? And if we're training, is it my data that we're training on? You know, it's just, I think, the right questions at the right time to be
Yeah.
asking. Yeah.
Really important conversation to have. We can't let this just run amok. There's got to be some controls, and I look forward to the conversation. Listen, we're almost at time, but I wanted
Sure.
to give you a chance to highlight anything new and interesting, trips you're going on, conferences you're attending. What's on the Hanzo, literally on the roadmap?
Well, so this will be our first year that we're going to Clock. So we have a team that's going to be at Clock in Las Vegas next. I think that's next month on the 15th. So as far as a road show goes, that's the next you know, kind of a bigger conference that we're going to be attending. Really looking forward to it. You know, it's been one of those things that we've kind of been on the sidelines, always watching and listening and talking to people that go there. And so this year we felt like, yeah, this is a good year to be there. I think there's a lot of great vendors. There's really a lot of really great enterprise folks that show up to that
Yeah,
event. So so that's the new one for us. And you know, transitioning into this year too, we of course on the roadmap for us is going to be choosing more of those AI technologies that make sense for us. Beginning to work with large language model NLP, so that those are areas where we're going to, you know, continue to build out and try to help our clients to do a more efficient job with all the information that they have coming to them. So
exciting
those are
time,
the biggies kind of in the near term, Mike, for us.
exciting times at Hanzo.
Absolutely.
Great. Where can listeners go to learn more? How do they get in touch?
Sure, Hanzo.co is always the place to go. You know, our blog is obviously really good. We have newsletters, all the typical social stuff that's out there. So really the best place. LinkedIn. You know, follow us on the socials and hit the site or sign up for the newsletter because we're great at getting newsletters out every month and have really good information in there.
And follow ACEDS. We share whatever you give us.
Absolutely, absolutely, always.
Self plug. This is
Perfect.
Thank you so much for making the time today. Good luck with everything. Let us know how we can help.
Fantastic.
Everyone, if you are interested in our short form video interviews like this one, you can find We Are ACEDS live in your LinkedIn, on Twitter, Facebook. Check out the ACEDS YouTube channel if you'd like. You can watch previous interviews there. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Hanzo.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
Alrighty.